for YouTubers who are feeling that stuckness, they need to start a side hustle and have another business going on the sidelines, because it's a matter of time before they peak and then things go backwards, or they just are like totally burnt out and they're ready to like jump off of a cliff to do something else, do whatever they want, even if it means hurting their family or their financial status being an influencer with millions of subscribers. It's a serendipitous thing. It was right timing. But you know what they say, like, it's luck. It's not about luck. It's about being in the weeds so much that you can spot opportunity when it comes. And that's how video marketing world was for us. Go through that pain and experience it and learn from it. Ignore what everybody's saying and learn from their experiences. Stack skills. Every failure should be an educational point. You're stacking skills when you're failing. You're learning things that sting. That should be burned into your skull.
This is Scott Simson. He's a 7-figure creator who has built an incredible done-for-you YouTube marketing business after walking away from his family channel and pivoting into polarizing hot takes on the world of YouTube and YouTubers. His journey has been filled with tons of failures and powerful moments that have taught him how to turn you into the entrepreneur you should be trying to be. In this episode, we dive into how being family vloggers was not right for Scott and his family, buying an event to amplify his credibility and income through association, what you need to do to get leads from your YouTube channel, and the power of monthly recurring revenue from one income source that you can control. This episode is going to be the gut punch that you need to stop thinking like a YouTuber and start thinking like an entrepreneur. The Funded YouTuber is brought to you by GigaStar. There are always people in your life that are building monumentally massive businesses in quiet, and this is my person, Scott. Scott, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for diving into your money-making creator journey with us today.
Absolutely. I am very excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Desmond.
I have known you for a very, very long time, and I obviously know what you do, but our listeners don't. So tell us, what do you create on the internet?
Well, I create content that is basically reading between the lines. I look at articles that are talking about their creator economy. I watch videos talking about their creator economy. I look at the big influencers that are in the creator economy, and I try to break down the things that are unspoken happening behind the scenes, just so everybody knows that there is a real, I think there's too much content that's out there that's like, you need good thumbnails and you need good titles and you need to start with your title and thumbnail. And I'm just like, hey, this is the reality of being a content creator. This is a reality of building something in the creator economy. And it's not always pretty. And so my mission is really to get out there and share with people, like, this is the reality of it all.
I love it. It's kind of like, I'm not here to make friends. It's very like America's Next Top Model, like with it. Like, you're super honest and blunt about it, but you bring it back around in a way that, like, this is what you can learn from it so you can move forward with success, which is something I know I always enjoy about your content. Because when you look at our plethora of YouTube educators and creators, big and small, there's like a nice,
they're vanilla.
they're not trying to offend anybody. They want to keep you happy and talk to their really stuff person. You're that guy that's like adding all the flavor to something, but like in a way that makes it taste good and in a different kind of way. I also know, though, that's not how you got started on the YouTubes and your creator journey. So tell us about like those origin stories.
Yeah, so I started on YouTube in 2014. I built a family vlog. We were full-time YouTubers from 2017 to 2019. And I learned a lot of things along the way. And one of the things that I learned along the way is that most family vlogs fake their life for views. And we got to this point in 2019 where my kids came up to me and they're like, Dad, why do we only have fun when we're filming? And I was like, oh, you're right. This is awful. I hate this. And so we kind of abandoned our family vlog because it just was so disingenuous. It felt so disingenuous at that point in time where I was just like, every day was structured around how we can get views. It was like teasing my kids with fake happiness. And I just felt awful. So now they have no happiness, and it's really, no, I'm just kidding. Now we're intentional about our family time, and then I turn it on for YouTube. Like, I have a very intentional focus on YouTube, but I try to stay as real as possible because the family vlog felt really, really fake at times.
Okay, that is an incredibly powerful thing. Like, as a mom myself, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. And like, why do we only have fun when we're filming? And it's so funny to me because of what we do as YouTubers. People are always asking me if like, oh, you make videos about this, or do you just like film your kids, or like, how do your kids do like understand what you do? And I remember I got a cat a year ago. It's like an emotional support animal because we're a PTSD ridden family. And people are like, you going to start like an Instagram for your cat and just film? I'm like, no, because then my pet becomes work. Did I think about it? Of course I did. I looked at it and I talked to friends about it. And they're like, it's really hard. And I'm like, yeah, doing what we do is really hard. Why do I have to make everything in my life some sort of content creation related business? And it's so I find it very interesting that like you had said that with your kids, and that had to have been, I can only imagine how incredibly hard that was to hear when it happened. But what an amazing like thing to pull back. What is your advice to those people that are in the family creation space to not fake their fun and only have fun if it's on camera?
Well, I think that the problem, like the underlying problem, is that YouTube kind of reinforces this behavior. It traps you into it. I remember we had a very clear path to 1 million subscribers on our channel. We stopped when we were about 350,000, but we had a very clear path to 1 million. If we would have just played games and faked being sick and faked injuries, clearly faking skits. Like if we would have just done skits, we could have made it to 1 million and beyond. We probably right now would be at 3 or 4 million if we would have just followed that path. But we were at a point, it was perfect timing because YouTube was going through this like Admageddon thing in 2017. And then everything in the family space was not advertiser friendly for the first 24, 48 hours that it came out in that time. So our revenue was hit. We took about an 80% hit in a matter of a month in our channel revenue. And we're like, hey, if we want to get out, this is the time to get out. Because if we play the game, build our channel back up to 6 figures in revenue, we're going to get stuck doing this. And we're not going to be able to have a way out. And I think a lot of people in the family space have gotten stuck doing it, where they're just like, I want to get out. YouTube's reinforcing this behavior. It's reinforcing this content and I can't. And so I think that for YouTubers who are feeling that stuckness, they need to start a side hustle and have another business going on the sidelines, because it's a matter of time before they peak and then things go backwards. Or they just are like totally burnt out and they're ready to like jump off of a cliff to do something else, do whatever they want, even if it means like hurting their family or their financial status being an influencer with millions of subscribers.
I know that last year when I was at Vid Summit in 2023, the ongoing theme that I kept seeing when I would talk to people of channels of all sizes and all kinds was that stuckness where they're like, what do I do now? Like all YouTube will allow me to do or be is this thing that I made a couple times and YouTube latched onto it and that's all it wants me to do. And I can't try other stuff. When I try other stuff, I'm like almost punished and penalized for it. And I've talked to since my great friend Jessica Stansberry about this, who's been a guest on the podcast. And we're like, she's like, I've tried to do other stuff. I've tried turning a multimedia channel, all these things, like it just doesn't work. And like if I talk about things that are not, in her case, like digital products, it doesn't have the same reach. She's like, I tried starting a vlog and it was just so much extra work and all this stuff. Like, and so it just becomes this place where it's like you just have to accept or walk away. And it's a really hard decision when it's like walking away from a job or like a family member or something, because
a great paying career.
yeah, it's like, how do you say no to something like that isn't you anymore? I think that that is a true foundational issue with where YouTube is in general. There's no opportunity for growth. And I don't mean growth from like a numbers and views perspective. It's very much from like a
Evolution.
personal, you can't change as a person. Like you can't grow up as a person. And it's like, having kids, like who you were as like a married person versus a parent, it's totally different. And, even like when your kids even go from kids to teens, it's totally different. Like you change as a person. What do you think YouTube can do, in your opinion, to allow for people to grow with their channels?
I think that they don't even care. Like Neil Mohan came out a couple of weeks ago in an article. He's interviewed by, it was CCN. I think I actually did a video on this because they asked him specifically that question. These creators are burning out. They are feeling trapped. They're leaving the platform. And his whole answer was like, oh yeah, they're moving on to other things, completely dismissing the fact that like there are core fundamental problems with the platform and burnout. And the burnout is coming because these creators feel like they've built an audience. Here's like the root of the problem is that the way that the algorithm works is that your content gets sent out to your warm audience first. And if the warm audience likes it, then it gets sent out to a cold audience. But if you completely about face pivot and try something new on your channel, and the warm audience doesn't like it, then it's a kiss of death for that piece of content, because it'll never get to a cold audience because of the way the algorithm works. What YouTube needs to do is allow you to have these like little test pockets where it's like, and I don't, I'm not a coder. I don't know how this would all work out, but if YouTube could just, if they could test your content in front of cold audiences like they do a new channel, then you could build a more well-rounded channel and have people that are interested in a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it worked, in 2014, 2015, when we first started. It's like we could put out a piece of content on a variety of different topics, and they would have equal opportunity of something lift. I had stuff that was like stuff take off about hailstorms. I had stuff take off that was about motivational speeches. I had content take off about our, pregnancy announcements. Like, we had multiple categories lifting, and it gave us a way more well-rounded vibe. But that's not the YouTube of today, which is very like niche oriented. You've got to be in one little pocket in order for YouTube to push your stuff out there to that cold audience. And then you always peak because you're in a niche, and everybody who watches that niche is like, you hit your total addressable market. And now it's like, where do you go from here? So you peak and then you settle. And the only solution right now is start another channel and hope that you've put everything in place in the background to be able to move portions of that audience over to your new channel.
I also think that this is also why it's so important to collect the data of your audience so that they can come with you and grow with you. Obviously, not everyone will go, but it's easier to bring them along with you and keep them interested in you when you can have control over communicating with them.
Definitely.
So this is a good, I think, opportunity. So 2019, you guys step back from your family channel. So then what do you go do?
So we had been working in the entrepreneurship community prior to YouTube. We wrote a couple books in 2010, 2011. I used to kind of travel and speak on the principles of those books. It was a personal development book called Fox in the Mountain. And basically I would go around to organizations and I would teach them principles of success. And so in 2019, we're like, hey, we've developed all these skills on YouTube, creating content, learning how to clickbait, learning how to write titles, learning how to develop a piece of content that would retain an audience. Let's take this to the entrepreneur crowd and help business owners build YouTube channels for their business. So for the last 5 years, we've been building our agency, Rafiti Media, and we work with business owners and companies helping build and manage their YouTube content system.
Now, I happen to know that you, along this route, purchased an event called Video Marketing World. I'd love to know about why you did that and how it supported what you were doing at the start of your agency.
So I was given advice by a guy named T. Harv Eker about 15 years ago. And Harv he was in the personal development industry, and he would go and teach people how to become successful. And I hit him up in the DMs on Facebook about 15 years ago. And I was like, hey, Harv, can you tell me what was the secret to success? And he's like, get in front of people and teach them your stuff. And even if it's like 2-3 people in the beginning, and it grows from there, start with groups of people and then just grow and scale that from there. So in 2019, when we were starting our agency, I was like, I need to get in front of people. And I was having trouble getting on stages. And then Jeremy Vest, the previous owner of Video Marketing World, he was going through a transition with it, trying to figure out what the next phase of it was going to be. And I just stepped in and I was like, hey man, I'd love to run this with you. And he's like, I'll give you 60% of Video Marketing World if you help me run it and you kind of take over things. And I was like, awesome, let's do it. So we did this like creative buyout type of a thing with Jeremy and took over in 2019. We had an incredible year that year. And that's really what opened up the floodgates for our agency.
I want to talk about like how what you did that was uniquely to do and how it's pretty big. So I have a story to share with you about why Video Marketing World is something I had to bring up with this conversation. Video Marketing World is an event I went to, and I don't tend to go to events unless I'm speaking at them because I have kids and a husband and all the things. So I'm like, okay, I have to be selective about where I go. But I went to this event and I was doing interviews for my Women of Video podcast. I met Devin Weber, at the time the CEO of Braille Skateboarding. Jeremy had brought her and all this stuff, and I interviewed her, and she had put a call out on this stage that she's like, we haven't figured out how to crack Facebook. So if any of you guys have an idea, come find me. And of course I did. So I interviewed her for the podcast and I talked to her about my idea, and she's like, done. That's unique. and I got hired. And what was so interesting about this is more for you and listener insight stuff, that saved my family. So at the time, my husband was transitioning out of the Air Force. And what we have found out with time and study, he was diagnosed with PTSD and he has become a full-time disabled veteran. I had to replace his income. And like 2 months before his contract was up, like half of my clients went away because we were going through a social media marketing shift. And I was like, because I needed to take over his income. And when I went to the event in September, which was shortly after that whole thing had happened, I had met Devin and it had like saved my family's income and had put me like in a place to like help that. And it just always has reinforced, and I double down on this. I tell this to everyone in the creator space. You have to go to events, because when you meet people, that is where relationships happen and that is where you can make money. I know that there are plenty of people that find ways to be successful, not going anywhere, not talking to anybody, but I feel like their impact is fleeting and their longevity isn't quite as there because they haven't built personal connections. So it's a little story to share with you so you know about the impact you have on other people, but also like, the reinforcement of like networking and stuff at events.
That's a phenomenal story. I love that. And I don't even like realize the impact that video marketing world has on everybody until they share stories like that. I mean, Austin Armstrong was another one where it's like,
I met him at that event too.
Yeah, he came in 2019. Yeah, you were there. And he left and he implemented everything that he was taught there, and now he's got like millions of followers across all of social media. He's completely crushed
And he
it.
came back to your event you did in 2021 and won awards.
Yes. Yeah. He did $1 million in revenue with his social media presence. And so we gave him a Dark Horse Award.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things, like, I think it's so important, like, to share those stories and the impact it is. What I ended up doing with Braille, it was really interesting, is I put together a really comprehensive repurposing strategy for their video content onto Facebook. And this is when Facebook was doing really good payouts on video content, and they started making like $15,000 to $20,000 a month in Facebook ad revenue from using the content they already had. And then we launched a Facebook group for them that was called Parents of Skateboarders, as a way to like bring moms, mainly moms, in who were like really nervous about their kids skateboarding, to educate them, support them, and teach them about stuff. And it was really impactful. And we worked with this group called Leanna and Michelle, and they did like a fun parody video about skateboarders and moms, and it was like really funny and perfect. So it was this whole like really fun video thing, and working through like using what you have and tapping into like aligned audiences and stuff that worked really well for them, especially through COVID too. So it was really cool. So how did the event, like from the event that you have done and what happened from there, how did it help your business, and what have you been doing and structuring over these past 5 years since you did that?
Video marketing world really launched us because it gave me instant credibility and authority. We brought in some of the most successful YouTube coaches on the planet. Tim Schmoyer, Daryl Eves at one point had joined us on stage, Sean Cannell, Benji Travis, and Roberto Blake. It positioned me alongside of those guys. And now, because I was hosting the event, everybody was like, we need to go to Scott for our video marketing agency work, the strategy stuff. So, I mean, from that event, we probably pulled in 2 or 3 really, really high quality clients. And then we also created white label relationship with an SEO agency, and they fueled us. I mean, they took us all the way to 7 figures just with the referrals that they were sending to us. So it was game changing for our agency. And it was one of those things that was just kind of like it's a serendipitous thing. It was right timing. But you know what they say, like it's not about luck. It's about being in the weeds so much that you can spot opportunity when it comes. And that's how video marketing world was for us.
Now, what are you doing with video marketing world now? I know that there's a little bit of saltiness because Vid Summit got moved to Dallas.
For some reason, after, let's see here, 2022, we just finished up 2022 video marketing world, and like Daryl and Vid Summit decided to move to Dallas on the weekend that we typically do video marketing world. So it gave us a moment to think about what is the future of video marketing world. And we've taken 2 years off just simply because we're like, we need to figure out something, because Vid Summit has moved into our territory on our week. Not that there's like, it's not like the Jets and the, the Sharks and stuff, but it was one of those things where it was like, ooh, that felt a little bit personal. And now we're trying to figure out what we're doing. I think we're we're working on something for 2025 though,
I
and
love
it's
that.
going to be big.
I mean, for
So,
unsolicited advice, I feel like the audience of Video Marketing World and Vid Summit are wildly different.
and that's what we've tried to make sure that as we're moving forward, we hone in on a very specific avatar that is different from Vid Summit, because Vid Summit tends to attract, I think, more of the creators and business minded creators, people who want to be like that typical YouTuber.
I always say to people, I'm a business owner who uses YouTube to support my business. I am not a YouTuber trying to figure out how to build a business. And I think it's a very specific distinction, because I feel like when you look at like the vid summoners and the aspiring VidCon attendees of the world and stuff, a lot of them are like the stars in the eyes. I want to be Mr. Beast. I want to be Emma Chamberlain's. I want like all of that kind of thing. And YouTube is so much more than that. And like it's sort of that idea, like, and again, I rant about this at quite length. It's like there's such a demographic of YouTube that like that gets idolized and focused on, and it's usually that like under 30 single person, and it's all about like them doing the crazy stuff, and you can see it all over the top 25 trending videos. Generally they're in gaming, they're in like attention things, you know, attention comment and stuff. But then there's this really big demographic of people that are like, how do I use YouTube as a business and an extension of what I'm trying to build? And it's a tool, it's an avenue, and I'm not completely dependent upon it, and I'm able to pivot and to do other things if necessary, even though YouTube is still like a really great part that and support system for businesses.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that are listening. A lot of these businesses are listening to like this Gen Z crowd who are like, you got to do this trend and you got to do this, and you want to be the Mr. Beast of your industry, and it's so much more complex than that. I mean, we were working with an e-bike company, and we gave them a strategy that was, they were like, hey, we want to go full Mr. Beast. And we're like, okay, let's do the strategy. Here's a full plan for how you can be the Mr. Beast of e-bikes. And they started creating content. They were realizing the budgets are astronomical. The time that it takes to create one piece of content is insane. And the impact of it might be awesome, you know, eventually when you get it out there, but is it a sustainable model for your talent, for your company? And the reality of it is, it's like, no, because they're not a content creation company. It's a completely different, it's like starting a second business if you want to go down that route. What we do in our agency and what we talk about at Video Marketing Worlds is how to create simple strategies that have a lasting impact, and they're very effective for busy businesses who aren't focused on content first. They're focused on XYZ service or XYZ product. That's what their bread and butter is. It's like, let us help you create a strategy for you that fits your needs, that fits your time allotment, that fits your budget, and not try to put you into this box of being a Ryan Trahan or a Mr. Beast or a Logan Paul type of a figure.
Yeah, and I think that's really valuable information for anybody trying to like make YouTube something that supports their business rather than trying to make YouTube their thing. And I think it's really invaluable. For those that are wanting to dive into YouTube circa 2024, and they have more of the entrepreneurial mindset, or they're wanting to pivot into like, I got to make sure this YouTube thing I'm doing is very business oriented, what do you think the strategy is that they can use to get on the right path financially for what they're doing?
We're really leaning into this like volume game, but it's value. So value first, and then try to create as much content as possible while maintaining a high standard of value. So a lot of people are like, quality, you got to have the best quality. You don't have to have the best quality. You have to be saying the things that make people pay attention. You look at somebody like an Alex Hermosi, who's producing a couple hundred pieces of content a month. Everything that you hear from him is insane value. He speaks in these like little incredible sound bites that just get you to think. And so when we're working with clientele, it's not as much about structuring the perfect framework. It's not about you got to say this in your hook. It's about you need to leave the audience feeling like there was something that they took away, and you need to do it in a way that's uniquely fit to your most authentic self, your brand, your core values. And if you do that right, then you're going to find an audience that is perfect fit for you. I mean, this is what we do on my channel. It's like, I know I'm a bit abrasive and hopefully in an endearing way. Like I try to keep it fun, but I know that I like polarize the audience. I get comments that are like super mean and angry at me. And I'm just like, perfect. This is exactly what I want. You're not a good fit for my agency. But when I get calls, these people are like, I love everything you're doing. I agree with everything you say. And you are our guy. It helps. Polarization helps you find the audience that is an exact perfect fit for you. And so that's what I teach. That's what I train. And that's what we help our business owners and businesses create those little like pockets of communities that are the perfect audience for them, and it works really really well for business owners.
How are you able to get leads from your YouTube channel?
Well, so I've actually had a lot of testing and experimentation. So we have some like very valuable lead magnets in each one of our videos, and I'll point people down to those lead magnets in our content. We solve very unique problems with our lead magnets. It's not just like a blanket, hey, this is for everybody, but it's like, hey, if you're having this issue, I got a solution for that. Check it out in the description below. So then we'll pull in thousands of email addresses a month because our lead magnets are really solid. You know, we're building our list from that. But then in reality, you know, I seed our agency, I talk about what we do and who we work with and things like that. And so we just naturally get a lot lead flow coming from our YouTube channel. It's not like advertise, you know, like most people go out there and they're like, I'm going to create content. Like we had a consulting client who, well, I won't tell you which industry because it's easy to figure out who he is. But he was in a very like luxury oriented industry where he's selling high end luxury stuff. And it was always like, hey, and if you need a dealer who is going to be like the best at finding you the greatest deals, I'm your guy. And it was like digital billboard. That stuff doesn't work. And you look like a complete idiot. Like it's backwards from what you should be doing on YouTube. You shouldn't just be self promoting. It needs to be all about your audience first. And if you make it all about the audience and the value that they're getting, then they will come to you. Even if you give everything away, they'll still come to you because they want proximity or they want your opinion on their specific problem. And that's how you build a loyal community. And that's how you build a very successful business, is being value first.
What makes a good lead magnet?
Everything needs to be value oriented and problem solving. There are so many like ebooks and email lists that are like newslettery, that are again very self-promoty. Even right now in 2024, like if somebody's like, hey, I just wrote a book, you basically know that when you read that book, they're going to have like websites on virtually every page for you to go to get on their email list. Books in 2024 are like one big lead magnet that you're just being sold the entire time. And so I don't like that at all. I think that that's really a dumb thing to do. And it makes people feel like they have just wasted $20 on whatever it is that you're selling just because you're trying to get them on your email list, or they're trying to get you on their email list. Get that right. Lead magnets of today should be 100% dedicated to the success of that audience member. And then there should just be some little blurb at the end that's like, hey, if you want to work with us, here's a link to our website. But I want my people, my audience members, when they get my lead magnet, to be able to implement that and see a dramatic shift. If they see a dramatic shift, they're going to associate me with the dramatic shift in their YouTube content. They're going to associate me with their success or launching pad to their success. And that's going to fuel a positive feeling that when they're ready for my services, they're going to come back to me because it was so valuable. They're like, I can't, you know, I want to hear from them. I can't believe you're giving this away. If I hear that from them, I'm a happy camper.
I love that. And that's really, what is it? Too good to be free offer, I think is
Yeah,
a great way
exactly.
to look at this. So this is a good transition into our pie chart, which is what we do differently here on the podcast, to show where the income streams of creators is coming from. And your biggest pie, it's like a huge percentage of what you do, which is at about 89.1% is in service. As a YouTuber who talks to other YouTubers a lot, what are your thoughts on so much of your income coming from one source?
Well, so here's my thought on that. Service, I trust myself to serve at a capacity that will never diminish. And so far for 5 years, we started White Glove Boutique and we have remained White Glove Boutique. And my customer service is utmost priority. So I trust if that is what brings revenue to us, and I trust that, then I trust that we are as secure as we've ever been, because I know that I will be able to continue to provide a service that people will be happy with and they'll keep coming back for, and they'll refer other people to. So I have zero issues with most of our revenue coming from service. And I've tried coaching before. We built a coaching program. We earned 6 figures from our coaching program last year, and it just didn't feel the same. It didn't feel right because our coaching students, I mean, the statistic with coaching is it's like 90% of people join a coaching program, they never show up, they never do the work, they never open a course. And I hated that. I wanted to flip that. I want 90% of our people to see a positive result from what we do. And if I'm in control of that in the service side of things in our done for you agency, then I'm in control of their outcome. I'm in control of like the positive vibes that our clients get. And I don't have to worry about them not doing the work because I'm doing it all for them.
Well, there's also the other part too with it, with coaching and consulting, is like they still have to do the work. Like, let's say you said like 90% don't show up, 10% of them, there's still a large percentage of them, they're going to go and get so overwhelmed by what they're learning and like the amount of work and time that it takes that they just like, I cannot do this, or do it halfway, or they have other things that get in their way. When it comes to business, and I've been in entrepreneurship for 15 years, I have come to a very specific like realization for myself, and it's, if this is something that is bottlenecking me to get it done, I need to hire it out as much of the parts as I can. And even like in my YouTube creator business, what I want to do is this. Like, I want to create the conversations. I want to do the talking to the cameras. I want to give the information and pack it full of value and then put the other systems in place. But then I have the team in place to make the parts work. Like, I don't edit my videos. I literally went to college to learn how to do this. I'm not editing my videos. I know how time consuming it is. And that is not an income producing activity. When I'm talking about like contracts, I'm talking about my taxes, when I'm talking about so many parts of the things that like it's a doing, you gotta hire that out. And as entrepreneurs, which is so a word that I think so many YouTubers and creators are not embracing for themselves. They focus on, I'm a creator. Like, if you think you're a creator, then you're going to fail because you need to be an entrepreneur, which is a totally different thought process and mindset. Because once you're an entrepreneur, you understand what your strengths are and that your success is only as good as the systems and people that are in place to help make them all work.
100%. Yep. Yeah, this is one of those things that when we started gaining success on YouTube, well, start before that. We struggled on YouTube for 2 years before we started seeing success. And for the first year, people were like, "Why are you doing this? Aren't you worried about your family being online?" And then the second year, we started gaining a little bit of momentum, and it was like, okay, yeah, cool. You got your clickbaiting, you're getting the one-off hits. All right. And then by year 4, when we were full time, everybody's like, how do I do this? Can you show me how to do this? And then it became a thing. Like, it was like people were impressed by it. But what they don't realize, what most people don't realize, is like, you have to go through that process in order to see success. You have to be willing to risk something. You have to be willing to fall on your face and have people tease you and make fun of you. Most people don't want that. They avoid that pain. It's the people who go through that pain and experience it and learn from it, ignore what everybody's saying and learn from their experiences, stack skills. Every failure should be an educational point. You're stacking skills when you're failing. You're learning things that sting. That should be like burned into your skull. And we did that enough, failed enough, that we learned how to do a whole bunch of really cool stuff. All of that was put into our agency, and that's what took us to 7 figures. It wasn't like we could just flip a switch and be like, okay, now we're here making millions of dollars a year. It's like we had to go through that process of fail. Oh, here's a little succeed, fail, succeed, and then it's like over and over and over again. You got to put yourself through that process, because that's where the education happens.
It's so interesting when you say that too, because people are like, oh, now that you have success and you're doing something, they want to know how you did it. Like, you literally watched me do this. Like, you watched me fall on my face. You watched me fail. You've seen me struggle. Like, if you want to get there, you gotta fail a little bit. You gotta suck to it. And while I can teach my lessons to you from, like, if you can definitely learn from my failures, you still have to go through your own failures on your own. Like, we see this with our children. Like, we try so hard to not let them suffer or struggle in ways that we did. But sometimes it can come in the place where you don't let them struggle or fail or get hurt at all. And so then there becomes this whole other issue. Like my husband's anxiety, he tends to helicopter parent. I'm constantly pulling his arm. I'm like, let them go. They have to go hurt themselves and fight and figure things out. We can't just referee and wrap them bubble wrap all of the time. It's hard because you don't want your kids to suffer, but it's the same thing with your business. You don't want your business to suffer because that's your income, that's your livelihood. And if you have teams, it's the people, other people's livelihood and stuff too. But without those failure points or those stress points or those things that you learn from, you can't get better. Like you are not going to be tougher and good if you don't suck. And I always say you have to start, you have to suck, and then you get better. So
Yep. Most people avoid the suck. That's the problem. They're just like, I don't want to hurt.
no one wants to hurt, but you need to hurt to get to learn the lesson. Like I really don't think like there's not a lesson I haven't learned from failing completely on my butt that hasn't made me stronger and moved me forward. But learning from other people lessons, like it's nice and it helps me avoid things, but I'll still have to go through some sort of level of struggle related to it in some way, shape, or form. 10% of your income comes from digital products and courses. What do you digital products sell?
Yeah, we have a YouTube course. I mean, that's going to change this year because I'm really not focused on selling that at all. But we have a YouTube course that I built out with like 40 videos. I wrote a 250-page manual, and we marketed that a lot last year. And it did well. Again, I'm not a huge fan of digital products anymore. I just really feel like the service industry is where I need to be. I need to be doing something for someone else and building systems around doing stuff for other people. And what's really awesome about service is the monthly recurring revenue. Like I'm not constantly in launch mode. Once we build our MRR up to the point where it's like we're stable, we're doing well, I can lighten up on marketing. I don't have to be constantly out there talking about our products and services. I can be in growth mode on the back end of our company, so that way we can ramp things up and increase our MRR moving forward. But I can do it in a very steady, stable way. Most marketers are always in launch mode, and it's feast or famine. If they're not doing a 21-day challenge, if they're not doing a boot camp, if they're not doing, it's like, oh, it's like I never want to be in that, because it's like it's make or break, and that's not who I am. I don't like building up all this hype and fluff and learning all of the like marketing language. I just want to have a really cool service that people want, that people refer their friends to, and we get to grow our business like a real business, not just in constant launch mode.
It's so interesting that you say that, because like now that you say like the exhaustion of always launching and doing things like but at the same time find me a creator that hasn't drank that Kool-Aid in some way, shape, or form, because they've been told or seen that that's what they have to do next. I'm not saying that, like, obviously service doesn't make sense for everybody, right? Like, I mean, like, it's not something that everyone can just do, but there's something to be said for figuring out what is your flagship income stream that you control, right? And I don't think for a second AdSense, affiliates, or sponsorships are something you can control, which are the big three that are put on this magical pedestal in the creator economy. And also, when you look at like, there's so many studies that come out, around like that January, February time about reflections of like previous year, and they're studying data. The highest income streams for everyone are those three. And it's just like, but you just can't control that. Like at any point, a company can make bad choices like TubeBuddy, or they can cut their affiliate programs like Canva, or they can decide to only like go from, in perpetuity to just 1 year, like ConvertKit did. Like you just can't control these things. So I think that if creators could find a way to figure out what their flagship product can be, their flagship income stream can be, that they can control, that allow for them to have so much more security in their business, and I think also longevity.
Well, and I'll conclude with this is like monthly recurring revenue should be the goal of every single creator, every single business owner. You got to be in charge of the MRR. And the more you stack your MRR, the easier it is to get yourself to a point of profitability and keep things moving, keep things going, keep your lights on, pay your overhead, pay your payroll. MRR is the secret to success for a lot of businesses. And I think that if you're not focused on that as a creator or business owner, you're kicking yourself. You're going to be kicking yourself. I just think it's so important.
All right, Scott, what is your next money move?
We're just scaling our agency. That's our big thing, is we're really focused on increasing our revenue with our agency and scaling it out and having the best and most reputable YouTube done for you agency in the world.
We also have your video marketing world announcement at some point next year to look forward to as well. Because I know we have like a couple more minutes, I would love to get one last story from you just to share with our audience. As a former family vlogger, you have kids that have grown up in the digital online creator entrepreneur space. What are your kids doing for themselves? What have they learned from you that they are now implementing in their life?
My kids they're crushing it on social. One of my daughters built a faceless Instagram account, and she went from like 0 to 60,000 followers in just a few months, learning the principles that we've taught them. My other daughter has an Ultimate Frisbee account that's got 30-some thousand followers. And again, these are faceless. And so the cool thing about faceless Instagram, especially, is that you can have a team operate it. You can have a team build it as long as there's revenue coming in. So that's kind of the thing we're focused on them now. It's like, what's your revenue model? You've got all these people who are following you. What's your revenue model? But they have, like, the things that we have learned on social media have really rubbed off on them in a big way. And it's given them this idea, this mindset that they don't have a cap. They can earn whatever they want to earn as long as they're willing to put the effort in.
Doesn't one of your daughters work with you guys too? Both of them do?
Yeah, my 18-year-old and my 16-year-old, they both work with me.
I love that. That's so cool. It's just aspirational. For me, it's goals. I want my kids to get there too. And I'm sure offline I'll be bugging you like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? But
at any time. Yeah, I love it.
It's great. Scott, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful for you sharing your income journey with us. And you can find the notes to everything to connect with Scott over at thefundedYouTuber.com. Until next week, go make that money. Peace. The Funded YouTuber is brought to you by GigaStar, a parent company of GigaStar Market, an SEC-registered funding portal, and member of FINRA. Learn more at gigastar.io. Music provided by APM Music, unrivaled music to bring your stories to life. Neither GigaStar nor its affiliated companies provide legal, regulatory, financial, or tax advice. Any opinions expressed herein are those of the authors and are the informational purposes only. The information and opinions expressed herein are subject to change without notice and do not take into account the particular investments, objectives, financial situation, or needs of any specific investors.